And listening to Malia speak in a previous panel, and even going to what Mr. Herson, well, my man Ben over here, we have a lot of power in the hip hop community, and sometimes it's a little bit misused. And I want to go into what I like to call, what I see in everyday life where I live in New York, and it's called like it's like, I always wanted to make this documentary, and I wanted to make it 2 parts. I wanted to call one part bitch, and I wanted to call the other part nigga. You know what I'm saying? And I always felt that these 2 words really kind of broke down our society in urban neighborhoods, just really black and brown neighborhoods. It just really broke it down to classify people as objects to the point where you can dehumanize them and thus bring down the morale of everybody around you. And it comes to a story like, I used to live in Harlem, and there's a rainy day, and I was standing in front of this pizza shop, I bought a slice of pizza, I'm standing, and there's like 3 or 4, 14, 15-year-old boys there, and it's a Sunday. So you see all the people coming home from church. They coming home from church, and beautiful women with their big hats and their kids, and you got a few younger women, and when they pass the kids are going, yo, ma, yo, ma, what's up? You want to get with this, ma, yo? She wouldn't say nothing. Well, fuck you, bitch. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, whoa. Like, wow, that's crazy. You're 14, So they kept doing it. So I couldn't stand there anymore, I couldn't stand there anymore and take it. So I had to go up to them, and I had to come up with a clever way to like engage them, because I was gonna be like, you stop that, because I'm the authority. I'm older than you, and they're not gonna listen to me. And I'm gonna have to argue with them. So I go, yo, young blood, like, I bet you $20 that I could get the same girls, without having to call them all those names and stuff like that, He's like, get the fuck out of here. You fat nigga, you can't do nothing. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I bet you $20 though. I got it right here. So I give it to your man right here. Hold this $20, right? So women come out and say, you go first. You put on your best game and try to get the favor of a young woman, just to, to engage you in a conversation. Couldn't do it. It's like, all right, well, you try it. Next guy, couldn't do it. So I see this woman walk up to her. I go, excuse me, miss, this is kind of a rough block. Let me walk you down the block real quick, just to look out for you. And that was my little ploy, to walk and talk with her. And I walked the whole block with her, made her feel comfortable. And I was like, well, you look beautiful. All right, see you later, And he's like, well, you didn't get the number. And I was like, you can keep the $20, but, you don't got to talk to women that way. It's not how you're supposed to do it. But they never had a person tell them that, or show it to them with a I don't know, je ne sais quoi about it to make them feel like this is cool, to be smooth or to be a gentleman. So that's what I look at it, is like, because, going back to what I said about the responsibilities, major corporations that put out this material, and I can't really tread on a rapper's First Amendment rights, but you can't say that, but I can also look at the corporation and go, well, you have to be responsible for this, because, this is harming our communities, you have certain rappers and they go out there and they're like, bitch this, nigga that, it's sort of like, what message are we saying to the kids? It makes it all right to be a gang member. It makes it all right to do like Malia said, to basically be locked into a zone where, the idea of a date with between young people is going up to a girl going, yo, you want to smoke some weed? Like, it's all right. It's not all right. And I look at it like this. In 1990s, early 1990s, previous to 1990, 80s, you had hip hop music that was creative. It wasn't about, you may have said, hey, your chain, it must be bigger than mine, or, I got the best raps than yours and this, but that was cool. It wasn't, you weren't looking at somebody and going, hey man, fuck you, you're weak and I'm stronger than you, and you're nothing but a woman, and you're, a receptacle for my semen, And after 1990, when West Coast hip hop came, you saw that the major corporations decided to clone this what was gangster music. It came out of nowhere. It seemed to come out of like the angst of NWA. You saw images of black angry men, niggas with attitude, with all black, and fuck the police, and bitches ain't shit, and that just came down to it. So now you have, previous to 1990, there were no record lyrics that basically called a woman out of her name. as a bitch. You had skeezer or hoe, but that trying to like generalize a woman that did that kind of activity. But not every woman as a whole was called a bitch. So now you take it to now where that's common language to the youth, you know? And these are the kids that weren't around in the 80s. So they're growing up in the middle of it, you know? And then also the word nigga. So you got a bunch of guys going, you know what? We all together, we're all hanging out, smoking weed, and so and so. Oh, well, Joe, they just beat up Joey around the corner. Let's get these niggas. Get guns and go do it. But I bet you said it was like, let's go kill these brothers, let's kill these black men. It just takes away a lot of the anger to it. But then again, we objectify people. We give them these names and we classify them so they don't feel like they're human, they're below human. So it makes it all right for me to grab a gun and then go kill somebody because he's not a person, he's a nigga. Or like I could have my boys run train on a girl that's 14. We all 13 guys could go one girl, because she's a bitch. And that's what the message is. And that's what helps, and that goes into like, you know, when you're talking about being in Senegal and Africa, when you go to Africa, that's the first thing they do, run up on you. They see you, a black man, you get up the chain, where's your gold chain? We got Benzes, we got bitches, we got liquor. It's like, whoa, I came here to ride a fucking zebra. I ain't come here to shoot guns and smoke weed. You know, I want to be in the safari. What the fuck? You know? And this is the communication we're giving out to the world, you know? And that's being that, you know, Malia said earlier, 27% of the youth population is under 15. So these are kids that are just coming up, and this is what they see. They see 50 Cent, and they're like, whoa, I want to be like him. And maybe they come from a war-torn country, you know, where they, you know, 15 years old, maybe younger, 11 years old, AK-47s, but you got a hero who's been shot 9 times, you know?
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Being so connected to that community.
Right.
And forgive my naivete, but is that really what 50 Cent wants to say to you personally?
50 Cent say whatever the fuck he wants to say.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, has anyone ever really asked
No.
artists, what is it that you really want to say? Because it seems to be like the chicken and the egg kind of thing, or chasing the tail around a circle. Who is it that we really continue to hold responsible for? I mean, is there some pressure being put on these artists
No.
by major corporations?
There's no pressure. Once gangster music was popularized and gangster music equated to billions of dollars, there was no censorship. You know? Are you talking about from a personal level?
From a personal, artistic level, if 50 Cent wanted to say, like, stop saying bitch and stop saying nigga and started saying, you're my brother and I can't wait to make love to my wife, but it's the same beat.
But it's a conundrum he falls into because if he changes up, he loses his fan base because his fan base will go, well, I didn't buy into this.
But I mean, is there a discussion, I mean, maybe this is what you're attempting to create, is there a discussion amongst those artists to shift so that the fan base, I mean, from what I'm told, a lot of the time the first, go around on a song, you don't even really know what they're saying. It's the beat that connects you, it's the sound. So if it's not until like the third time in that you're actually getting the language.
Right.
I'm confused on who is really held responsible. If they are, then why is it that they seem to be so afraid? Because if there was no 50 Cent, then who would there be? Or if he has a fan base, does he have enough fan base for them to still want his records? Because his beat is the same, and now he's saying, oh, he's saying something that maybe can hit home actually in a way that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it's that's what I'm saying. That's why, me and a couple other executives have created something called The Glitch, so we could tell our artists, like, listen, you have to be somewhat responsible with the subject matter that you put out. Now, 50 Cent is the industry himself. Like, 50 Cent was birthed out of violence. This is a guy that had a record career before, and he was talking about the same stuff. He got shot 9 times, and that glorified him to the people who were in his community. Because if you survive 9 bullets, you know what I'm saying? And you can live to tell about it, then you come back and you have your enemies vindicated and you become the man and you're...
It seems like he told that story, so now what he wants to say, technically. I don't mean him in particular, I don't in general.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of just mention that if you have a question, since we're taping this, to just please come to the microphone. And I'm sorry I didn't mention that before. And I should also ask, are there any people here from M119? There aren't any people here? Okay, would you please state your question? Also, sir, if you don't mind, at the microphone since we're taping it. And we will be ending in the next 15 minutes, so try to make sure you get your questions in. Thank you so much.
Now. We here now. We here. So, yeah, but like to your point, it's like when it comes to artists like 50 Cent or anybody like that, it's up for them to you know, basically control the content that they have. And if they have an epiphany, be like, oh wow, you know, maybe they'll change it up. But I think at this point, 50 Cent is such a big business because it's big. It's millions of dollars. Like, you know, hundreds of jobs have been created around him and that image. I mean, he's only going to get the Nike, the Reebok endorsement because he's 50 Cent who got shot 9 times. He's only going to get the vitamin water endorsement because he was 50 Cent that got shot 9 times. You know, who said this and who said, what up, blood, what up, cuz, what up, gangsta, which was an anthem in Los Angeles from still to this day. It's a rallying cry for some of the gangs that are out here. So, I mean, it starts with having someone like myself who is in the industry and it's like, listen, you know, I'm kind of tired of hearing this, like, you know, or it comes with artists who just is fed up themselves. Like, you know, there's plenty of artists that go, you know, this guy does not represent me. And we start to see, if you go into Compton, you go into Watch, you'll start to see a kid with a skateboard. You go to East Side, you'll see a kid with a skateboard with a mohawk who's trying to be different. He doesn't want to be classified as this thug, this tyrant, because he's like, these guys don't speak for me, you know? And that's what's happening in the world. It's happening little by little, but it takes like an initiative to let everybody know it's okay to do this, you know? It's okay. You're starting to see that a little bit, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi. My name is Julia. Hi, I'm an educator and anthropologist. And my question is to Ben Harrison. Should I, like this? Okay. So my question is, in a related vein, about kids engaging with global hip-hop culture. And you were telling me during the break that you take these recordings from Senegalese artists into schools in the US. And I'm interested in how the kids engage. So you have, apparently there's a social change message in some of these. And so how do kids relate with these more positive messages?
So correct me if I'm right, how are kids that we're bringing some of these artists to in the schools, how are they kind of responding to the message? I think in a variety of different ways. For the most part, we usually start these different workshops and performances that we do with the film. Just because the film is so engaging and visual, and they can really hear the artists and see them, watch them in their own environment, and read the subtitles and whatnot, and it kind of have like a half hour or an hour to really think about that. And I think that the main thing that I hear a lot actually has to do with a lot of the simple things, like, wow, I didn't know that there was like electricity, or I didn't know that people lived in houses, or I didn't know that all these things. So it's amazing. It may seem really strange to many of us in this room, but many young kids like have just such a difficult time even contemplating Africa as being something other than what they've sort of seen on TV, or maybe not even seen anywhere. A lot of times they haven't seen much. And then I think that the second thing is they usually take quite quickly to the artists themselves. And it's been something that the artists have always kind of been a little, like, how are they going to respond to this? That I'm rapping in Wolof, I'm singing in another language, how are they going to interact? And almost all of the time, the kids are just so happy to have someone performing in front of them and talking to them, and especially after they've seen an hour or so of what their life is like. And I think the main thing is that kids want to respond to things that are authentic, right? They want to respond to something that's real. And I think the gangster thing for a long time was the thing that was real, right? That's what people were responding to, because a lot of the music that was out there in the mainstream was very canned and kind of commercial and dumbed down. So the gangster thing was sort of appealing to lots of people because it seemed so, it seemed like the real deal. And I think now we're at a point, and Pete was just talked about this a lot over the past hour, about how we're kind of, at this turning point right now. And it's interesting to see that in the classrooms with a lot of kids, how they really do, if they're given an alternative, will respond quite quickly to it.
My name is Joshua, but I'm known as Scotch Davis. More than a question, I think I just wanted to respond to what the young lady in the back said. I'm an artist myself. I'm originally from Harlem, New York. I'm a transplant. I moved out here to California to work for a clothing company by the name of LRG. But I just recently decided to chase my musical dream. And I think that, I think you brought up a very valid point, but I think I read a book one time called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I don't know if anybody else read it, but I know that the consumer has to start taking as much responsibility for what you consume as much as for what the artist put out. Because like Beef said, I'm an artist that I think I put a different message. You know, my mother was diagnosed with AIDS in 1995. My father is a world-renowned musician. I've grown up around everybody from Alex Boone to listening to Frank Zappa to Jay-Z to everything. And I think that the platforms and the avenues for artists such as myself are very limited because a company will sit down and look at it like, okay, we can either give an opportunity to this kid who's actually trying to change people's scope of hip hop, or we could go ahead and make $1 million with 50 Cent and put him on the cover. Okay, we'll make $1 million with 50 Cent. I think more than anything, we need to start taking so much business out of music, you know, and like in the 70s, all my favorite musical people, they didn't have Wheaties boxes and they didn't have sneaker ads. They just made great music because that's all they did. And anytime you do something great, greatness is a prerequisite of everything that you want in this world, you know. So I think that the more business we take out of it and the more we focus on these artists and like brothers like my brother Gavin in the back, like we live and we kick it and hang out in you know, a neighborhood that is notorious for crip activity. I mean, right now, just the other day they had the yellow tape out, you know, but that doesn't scare me, you know, like you said, that doesn't make me afraid. You know, I didn't say when I moved to California, I lived in Orange County for a while, I didn't feel right living down there because that's not where I'm from, you know. I'm from where the kids are throwing up their gang signs, and I'm not afraid to interact with these guys. So I think the more support that artists like me get from people like yourself and the consumer who gets more involved and speaks up and says, you know what, we don't want to see 50 Cent wearing a Reebok. We want to see, you know, Mos Def. We want to see that, and we don't turn on our TV, and we don't go pick up a 50 Cent album or whatever the case may be. And I at the same time, I don't want to say don't support that man because he's also a facet of life. You know, there is a kid somewhere who got shot 9 times and doesn't know what to do with himself next. He thinks that the gangster life is the end. Hip hop may be a savior for him. We just have to make sure that we put enough attention and praise on the good and the bad, kind of like the yin and the yang. You know, the white is nothing without the black and vice versa. So.
I want to jump in on that because I think that the point that he makes, technology and culture are actually giving us an answer for. And I want to recommend a book to everyone called The Long Tail. And what that book is showing is that because of the way music can be distributed now, that before you had record companies that would go for the big bang. So you would go for the Britney, and that's really how you paid your bills. And then the other smaller things, you know, you just sort of did, right? But now what you're seeing is that you still have these Britneys and, you know, and the huge units being moved. But when you go down to the long tail part, that this long tail part, you know, someone buying a random independent artist is actually becoming as profitable as the one Britney Spears album. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us as consumers to help flip that idea of, you know, of the pop star and the moving 40 million units.
Exactly, like the internet opens the door to let people know that you know, you don't have to just eat what they feed you. You know, before you had to go to the record store, you had to get a record, and that's what you got. And now you can explore. Now you have technology like Pandora, where you have the song that you like, and it recommends something like it. So it might open you up to something you've never heard before. Like me, I like Pantera. You know, I mean, I just always liked it. I always liked hardcore, screaming metal music. You know, and you know, and that happened to be brought to me by somebody who I was an authenticator. That I was like, man, I like your lifestyle. You know, I think you're cool. So what do you listen to? You know, so with the internet, it kind of brings everybody together. Like, you know, it's like, oh man, you're a friend of a friend of a friend of mine, but you listen to this, so I might just listen to this. You know, or you think about like this way. Maybe I could be in my neighborhood and I don't have to listen to what the guys in my neighborhood say because somebody in Paris sent me an MP3 or something over there. I'm fascinated about that. Like one of the first things, a friend of mine who I went to school with, there was a movie called La Haine, or The Hate. It was a French movie. It was about three It was about three friends, and one was Jewish, one was Israeli, and another one was a black guy, all living in the same ghetto in France. And the interaction they had with the police was like violence. You know, the police just beat them up all the time. So it was them versus the police in society. And for the first time, I was like, wow, this goes on? I thought this was going on in my neighborhood. And to see it happening in France made me want to go to France and eventually go to France and interact with artists like Booba, who's like the 50 Cent of France, you know, and hear his struggles and stuff like that. Opened me into a whole new world of possibilities and ideas and influence. And, you know, I think that's definitely what the internet is doing for us, you know, so.
Okay, I think that we may have to bring it to an end.
Oh, just one more.
Okay, yeah, just one. Well, I think there was a woman
that
was
sorry.
there before you. Sorry, bro.
Two more.
Make it very, very short because
two more. We got to really do.
We'll
Who wants to work right now?
I'm just following just
we'll
instructions.
Make our answers short.
Okay, cool. All right, please.
Okay, let me bring the mic down a little bit. My name's Monica. I'm from Otis College of Art and Design. And
nice.
Speaking for the MySpace generation, let me just ask, do you think that now that we are communicating in this way, and now that we are restructuring the way that we interact with people, is there a need, and how would that need be assessed for the vehicle of change itself to change? The way that we're addressing our young people and the way that we are trying to get them involved, how would we go about doing that? Because we have so much access to each other, people across the world, how is that changing the way that we see change? And how is that changing the way that we structure those vehicles for change?
That's an excellent question. And I'll talk about a couple of trends that we're seeing. And first is that the answer becomes more global. So, you know, so like this idea of youth and violence is no longer about getting guns off of the street in my neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, right? But it's about a kid in Jenna, Louisiana getting, and I have that connection to him. And so I think it allows us to be much broader with our policy asks, right? Like we no longer are just very focused on our few blocks. The idea of how does that make change different, I think is a rubbing point at this point. And what I mean by that is you still need to get 50% plus one of the votes to become president of the United States, right? Like you still need to get Ohio, Florida, and Michigan, right? I mean, Barack still needed to win those states in order for him to win. Barack needed to spend almost $1 billion because those who have the most money win, right? I mean, so the game, the power game is the same. But what has changed is our ability to function within it. And there's some amazing experimenting going on right now. I mean, I think like the move-ons and the meetups and, stuff like that is sort of like a natural answer. Like, oh, look at what Move On is doing, to be able to bring people together. But what you're seeing with these like hackers and dorks is you're seeing that they're creating this interface where like there's this young guy in, well, he's not that young, but this guy in Brooklyn who does a lot of the text mobbing stuff. And what he's doing is he's creating an interface for your cell phone so that if you have 5 minutes, you can text this place, and they'll give you something that you can do in 5 minutes on your cell phone that's advocacy for social justice, right? So what I think what we're going to end up seeing is the way we interact with change agents are going to change and are going to become much more real time and much more technical. But how that's going to affect change, I think we're not going to know yet. Now, Barack Obama is the first president to bring the internet into the White House. And I was just in the West Wing last month, and I will tell you that he is the first president to bring the internet into the White House. Clinton did not use the internet. George Bush did not use the internet. So when you see him creating things like mybarackobama.com or urbanwhatever.com or getajob.because-I'm-president-now.com, like he has all these like .com-y things that you can go and like find things out. And so I think that eventually will change the way democracy works. And then we might be able to see a change in that. But for right now, where you're really seeing the change is in the connectivity of our issues and understanding one another, and the quickness that I can now respond and act on a larger scale.
Yeah, I've been Twittering this whole time.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, if you go to my Facebook right now, you will see this picture. I mean, I've been uploading this entire conference on Facebook this whole day, and Beef's been Twittering all day on what we're doing. So.
Okay, I think somebody said we have to. Is that someone who's okay? Did I hear a voice from the back? I think that we. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I have to kind of follow those who put
my name,
something. Make it a little short.
Real quick, I just want. My name is Gavin McNeil. I'll just tell you why I like the MySpace and the Facebooks, why they work, or why they'll be beneficial to us, is because, like you said, it's about us, like understanding our youth. You know what I'm saying? People. You can go on MySpace and create a profile and put all your information, tell your story about who you are, and somebody else, without having to be in your face and act like they're trying to find out about you, they can get to know all about you and then say, hey, we have some things in common and we can be cool together. You know what I'm saying? We can be friends. If we use that on a day-to-day basis and not be so uncomfortable with one another and say, listen, you know, you're from where, you do this, oh, you're into this, okay, cool, look, let's be cool. Now, take it from the internet. I mean, the internet, you can meet somebody in New York and I can be on the West Coast, but if we use it in our communities, understand people's story, what they went through that caused them to be the way they are, what they went through that brought them to this point in their life, that's when we start to understand, have a heart for them and say, okay, I went through some of the same things. Let's come together and create unity and progress. We have a campaign going on right now called Just Be Cool, which is an effort to redefine the word cool, and the new definition is to keep a positive attitude about life and a world of peace, unity, and progress. So what it is, I mean, what's cool? We're all humans, accept one another, and just understand each other, you know?
Okay, thank you so very much. I really appreciate that. And I also want to thank the panelists who really stimulated the urge of our youth who are in the audience to come up and share some things from a personal point of view as artists, and also just the concept of just coming up and just asking questions, which, as Sister Lazou said, would stimulate a certain kind of energy. Thank you so very much.